On John Fitch here, and I'm hosting Rule Zero. We got some handsome gentlemen on the show with us. We got a good spectrum of age here, I think, right now. So we should be able to get a good feel of knowledge, I think. Today's show, we're going to focus on how you can, the best way, the absolute best way. Rollo made his list recently, made a lot of waves about how to become a high value man, the fastest way to become a high value man. Well, one of the things he left off the list is don't F up your life. Don't F up your life. That's probably one of the biggest things that you can do that sets yourself back. And I think that Aaron Clarley talks about this a lot. Like, don't screw up your life. Don't have kids when you're poor. Don't get a stupid degree. Things like that can keep you from digging yourself in a hole. All right.
I would even go so far as to say that most of us are halfway down the hole when we start. Right? Just from lack of knowledge.
Like knowledge, depending on depending on who you're born with, what your parents are like. I don't feel like I was born in a hole because I had good parents, not because I had money or because I had whatever, but because I had strong people who knew how to work hard and knew how to just get things done.
Yeah. Here's your body. Go, kid.
Oh, I came from the complete opposite. Where so like I had parents, and that was kind of it. It sounds very cruel, but my dad was always the guy who was like, you need to work hard, and he did. He was like a great. What he did, he was good at. He was always in logistics, and he was a very well-known man in that. And money was never an issue. But that's where it ends. Now, my mom is a whole different topic, which we shall not get into. But I had a mom, and that was kind of it. And then she died. So that wasn't much either. So the whole motivating stuff really had to come internally, where it's like, look, kid, it's not looking good. If you want something, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to do things. Luckily, I always hung around the higher educated kids in high school and things like that. So I always had that sense of, no, I can do better. Like, I'm not dumb. I'm not an idiot. Apparently, like, I can level with these people. These guys are all in higher education. Apparently, I can do this. Tried and failed. And then I got a friend who was into weightlifting. And at first, it didn't really appeal much to me. Then one of my mates got dumped. He found Elliot Hulse, showed Elliot Hulse to me. And Elliot had a way of formulating the message where I was like, dude, this weightlifting thing is awesome. And now I'm here on a Rule Zero panel member. I did it, boys. If I can do it, you can do too.
That's pretty fantastic. Now, would you guys say that? I mean, a lot of young men that do have issues in life at first have trouble with impulse control. I see this younger and younger, even misdiagnosed in children as ADHD. Where they're rather impulsive. But I think this is pretty darn normal. If anybody's ever studied the triune brain theory, where you have the brain stem and then you have the middle brain, which is called the lizard brain, and then you have the mammalian brain, and then the upper brain, which is the human brain, which is the frontal neocortex, where reason and a lot of the upper consciousness is formed at. As far as the theory goes, that impulse control right there, in that limbic system, that middle brain, where it's hot, run, freeze, fight, flight, all of those things generate there very, very quickly before the rest of the brain responds. So definitely see impulse control. That's very, very, you see that in animals, you see that in young humans. And
you think that impulse control is a little bit there because kids today don't have, it's the MTV, the microwave generations. They don't have delayed gratification.
Oh, yes.
They don't know what that's like. They don't know what it is like to wait for something or to put time and effort into something for something to come out later.
Mm-hmm. And that has to be taught. I believe that is something that is taught for sure. That's something conditioned, because the impulse is there. I need it now. Who hasn't done that? Or even when you're shopping, you talk yourself into a purchase that's absolutely stupid, but you know what? That deal's not going to come back around again in my lifetime, so I have to get it now. So I'm going to overextend myself.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're talking about, and that's actually quite an adolescent approach. Very young-minded, and of course, we see that a lot with a lot of young people today, and even people that are starting to hit middle age. Is this kind of maturity that reminds me of kind of teen adolescent type emotional behavior. You seeing that, John?
Yeah, 100%.
What
Very
I saw a lot of, unfortunately, and you bring up a good point, Thor, where the delayed gratification system in the brain is either it's not well developed or it's almost damaged, where the fight or flight just is continuously on flight. Because I saw guys who went the hardest thing they went through is divorce of their parents. Now that's a terrible thing. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely abysmal, but they weren't abused, whatever. Still everything was taken care of, but parents were divorced. And I knew one guy, he was insanely into cars. And I mean insanely. You put that kid in front of a car, he could fix it. He could get it better running than it ever did. But he just had unprocessed issues.
Mhm.
He got into soft drugs, marijuana, hash, things like that. I mean, it's legal in the Netherlands. So, and around here we have a coffee shop. Now, for you Americans, coffee shop in the Netherlands means a whole different thing here than it does to you guys. That's the place you get the weed. But he was in the coffee shop every day, smoking weed, being a stoner, whatever. Then his job didn't suffer that much. Then his girlfriend broke up with him and he got into hard drugs. Lost all his fucking teeth, lost his job, had a psychosis. That's the word, right?
Yes.
Yeah, psychosis. It's completely off the chart.
So Jack, I got a question for you. Living in the Netherlands, so you guys have addressed some of these issues in a different way than we hear us prudes in the West. You
Yep.
guys have
We're in the West too, mind you.
That's true, but you
Further
guys at least
west.
have the approach where as a libertarian, I can see where you're coming from, where you have these soft vices or these
Yeah, I mean, people, there were
stations that are
people
legal,
should be
but
allowed to do what they
do
want to
that
do.
with drugs, and then you guys also offer Panache legally over there, right?
Mhm.
But guys can still fall into this same issue with impulse control, even though these are legal things.
Yes.
Do you think that one leads to the other? It just ramps up when you have no impulse control?
In my humble opinion, I don't think the legality of it has anything to do with it.
Yes.
People will find their vices,
Yep.
whether it be legal or not. Now,
Mhm.
some people can perfectly handle their vices. They drink once or twice,
Yeah.
it's done.
Mhm.
They take a hit of a joint once or twice, it's done. You name it. But there are a lot of people who don't do it. Now, the hypocrisy in the Netherlands, in my humble opinion, lies in alcohol. Hey, Tomasi. And I think Tomasi can back me up on this one.
Yeah.
I think you can. So, like, the Netherlands right now is like really going hard on smoking, like nicotine bad, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it isn't, but hear me out. Meanwhile, alcohol is being promoted left, right, and center. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I think, and I'd love to get this confirmed, alcohol ruined a lot more households than nicotine ever did. Yet here we are still celebrating the alcohol culture.
I kind of have a feeling that the anti-tobacco thing is a sales tactic.
Yeah, that too, because like
I
most
honestly
of the
do,
government
because
funding comes
yeah,
from tobacco.
they're still making tons of money. They're still
Mhm.
selling tons of cigarettes. People are still smoking a lot. It may have changed,
I
but
finally quit, by
I
the way.
kind of feel like it's like the whatever, the parental warning, parental advisory stickers on the rap albums in the 90s. Like if it
Yeah.
didn't have a parental advisory sticker on it, it was garbage. Like we didn't want to buy it. It
Dee
had to
Snider had a whole
have the
thing.
mark of the beast on there in order for us to buy it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is approved by them, so we're not gonna listen to that music. Oh, this one, they don't like this. We're gonna listen to this one.
Dee Snider went to Congress for that, right?
Yeah,
for the yeah, that
now,
was Dee
now
Snider,
he's
right?
crying. Now he cries about.
Would you like me to tell you the stories of the days of old, young man?
Yes, please. But was I onto something with the alcohol thing,
It was a
Rollo?
PMRC. Yeah, you are. The funny thing about alcohol is you will never remove alcohol. You will take away people's guns before you take away people's alcohol. Trust me on this one. It is recession proof. There are a few industries that are recession proof, and alcohol is one of them. Ask me how I know. I've been in wine and spirits for about almost 20 years.
When was it what they tried it? The 1920s?
Yes.
Prohibition in the 1920s was, and of course, brought about by angry Karens of the angry Karens of the time.
Temperance and abject failure.
Yeah. It was
Educated white women, man. Educated white women. They're the worst.
What was it again? Middle-aged white women, apex predators, man.
Yeah.
Apex predators.
Yeah, where my pogs at, where my mogs at, whatever it is. I don't even know, but no. So there's a really great book that I would suggest anybody reads. It's called Alcoholica Esoterica, and when I was working in wine and spirits, it was a gift I got. I still have it in my bookcase. It is basically trivia about alcohol, the history of alcohol in humanity, more or less, and it has some pretty funny ass stories too. Especially tied to the formation of governments, and just how like certain wine and spirits and beers and stuff sort of came about. I think it was funny because like people, I was just having this conversation. I forget who I was talking to, but some chick wanted to say, well, if it wasn't for women, you guys wouldn't have beer. Because like some chick was like baking bread and figured out that yeast was like a way to ferment, alcohol and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, yeah, but it was men who took it and distilled it down to gin and vodka.
Where that yeast came from.
There are fruits. There are fruits that fall off the vine and will become alcohol. Right? I've seen videos of orangutans and other animals like eating.
They're
probably female.
I guarantee you, at one point, it was a man. It was a man who's like, "Hey, what are these monkeys doing? What is this? Why are they acting so funny? I'm going to eat that too." It was a man who took the leap to find out what that thing was. He was a man who ate the fruit or drank the fermented juice. It wasn't some woman like, I'm going to roll the dice on this. It was a guy. I guarantee.
So anyways, in that book, more to your point, Jack, is there is no way you're going to remove alcohol from the human history, right? It's just not going to happen. Like literally, like when Paul Revere was writing saying, the redcoats are coming, like that, what he was doing? He was like riding from bar to bar to bar and like sucking it out. Like by the time he was done with the ride, like Paul Revere's like famous ride, the dude was a shit faced at the end of
that way to die.
Like, whatever you got to do, man, just go from bar to bar and make sure everybody knows along the East Coast.
But if I might be so bold, like you still don't drink, do you?
I don't drink anymore. And again, I've never been to AA. I've never been to, never had a DUI or anything like that. I worked in wine and spirits for a very long time. And, I've seen enough people. I see the signs. I see, I'm good with it. But I tell you that I don't really get asked this very often, but I made the decision to stop drinking right around the end of 2017 because I wanted to. I was sick of like getting up and being like having to recover all the time. And I was writing the fourth book and it was like really intense. Like I had to like really focus on what I was doing because it's my most well-cited book. I realized that when I'm writing a book about like the red pill and religion, I had to be bulletproof, man. So I was like constantly interviewing, different people from different religions. And I just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to drink until I'm done with this book. Right. That was my whole thing because I'm more efficient. I'm a better writer. I'm just on my game more when I'm not like trying to recover from a hangover over the weekend. Right. Yeah. And so I stopped drinking. I promised myself, I said, okay, when I'm done with this book, then I'll celebrate by having a drink. Right. Then I'll get back. And then I found like 3 years later, because it took me 3 years to finish the book, that like once the book was published in 2021, I'm like, you know what? I have no desire anymore to do that anymore. And then things had changed in my life, like as far as being more popular, I was going on Fresh and Fit. I was more in the public eye, and I have to be on my game. I have to be bulletproof on my game all the time. And it just doesn't, I'm a more efficient writer, human being, I'm a more efficient Rollo Tomassi when I'm not like drinking. So I'm just, I just don't care.
It's so strange that when you stop,
I'm happy other people are drinking because I make money when you do that, from
of course. I mean, there has to be some reason.
Please,
But it's
drinking.
It's so,
I'm just like, it's just not for me right now.
I know you're kidding, but it's like, it's so weird when you stop drinking because at a certain point I got more into exercise and things like that. Hi, Glenn.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Jesus Christ, fucking Hummer. But when you do go out, because, well, you do want to socialize, you don't drink, and then you see the people who drink, and you see what it can do to people. It's like,
yes,
was I like that?
Well, so I worked in wine and spirits for a very long time, and mostly in like a production capacity. So I was doing all the art direction, I was doing all video, I was doing all the promotions, I was doing like constantly doing live events and on-premise stuff, martini fests and shit like that all the time. And I got to the point where it's like it's 2 a.m. and you're the only sober one there because you're working the gig. You can't drink while you're working the gig. Everybody else is having a great time. They're all fucking sloppy drunk, but like I can't because I got to make sure everybody gets home and all the shit gets done. And like guys don't try to like be, Captain Save a Ho and all this other stuff. And so I realized that like if you're the only sober one in the club at 2 a.m., it's like a superpower. Because people are like, hey man, how are you? And you're the only one who could like really understand what this guy, like he's not going to remember it the next morning, or that chick's not going to remember what's going on the next morning.
Also kind of like a zoo. It's like you feel like a spectator where it's like,
it's not, I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, that's great, man. Like Rollo Tomassi's got this real moral perspective. He doesn't drink that. I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. It's just efficiency is what it is. It's not a moral perspective. Trust me. Like, all of most of my family still drinks, but they're not like drinker,
years of security at the bar too. You see how stupid people act. The things you have
I'll tell you this,
resolve.
If somebody posts up on me in a club and the dude is like drunk, I'm like, dude, you don't want to do this. Like, because I'm so
people have no idea how susceptible they are to be getting knocked out.
Yeah, because they're
seriously injured when they're drunk. It doesn't take much. A little backhand will put a lot of
it inspires them to be a little bit more like throw caution to the wind, but like
liquid courage.
If you're the sober one in the club, it's a superpower. And I was just at just on Thursday night after Access Vegas, we all went to Zook, which is like a huge club. If you know Zook in Las Vegas, and Glenn actually walked me to the front. He couldn't get in because he was wearing
I got banned. I was in shorts, so I couldn't even get in the club.
They wouldn't let him in the club because he looked like fucking Sammy Hagar out there, and you don't get in the club looking like that. But so I'm in there, and we went to go see Deadmau5, right? Because he was there at the club. It was great, actually. It's not my scene mostly, but I do like his stuff. So because it's like it's very bass heavy, and he can move air, and if you could, the crowd it just goes crazy for this guy. And so I'm there, and like damn near everybody in the club is like is sucking one down, except for me and Mike. And Mike doesn't drink either. So like if you look at like guys like Fresh doesn't drink. Myron, I've only ever seen Myron like drunk once, and that was when they had the million party, the million sub party. But like again, I've never seen them out of control. I've never seen them shit-faced drunk. I've never seen them one of the reasons why they're so effective, and one of the reasons why they have at least some endurance, is because they don't have that problem that a lot of other guys do. Like they will bring that if you are a guy, an influencer or whatever, and you work in 9 to 5, and you had a punch in, punch out job, you start becoming an influencer, and you go from making like $60,000 a year to $600,000 a year. You are now an alcoholic that makes $600,000 a year,
and that's not.
Or you're now a drug addict who makes $1.5 million a year, and you will drag that. If you don't kill those demons before you become successful, they will only intensify by an order of magnitude as to how much more you're earning and how popular you are and how.
But isn't that old quote that like money will show you who you really are?
Yes.
It's like it's like if you're an asshole before money, you're going to be in one hell of a dick when you after it.
Well, okay, I look at it this way. It's you since today's topic is don't fuck up your life. One of the major like pitfalls that I see a lot of guys fall into right now, and especially sort of like the Twitch streamers, or the guys who are sort of trying to come into the space, or the people who are who in any other era would be like these destitute losers, right? But because we live in the internet age, they can suddenly go up to, they have a platform, people find them popular, they make a shit ton of money. These guys,
there's a lot more losers.
Era, they would not be making the kind of money, they would not have that popularity, they would not be fucking the girls that they're fucking, right?
That's an astute observation, actually.
But you take those guys and you give them the world, right? You give them popularity, you give them, whatever their sub count is.
The nerds.
Yeah, you give them that, and of course, chicks want to fuck them. They want to fuck them because they have the resources, because they have something that the other that they need.
And sparkling blue hair that matches their eyes.
Right. Well, it's the and you probably heard this before. It's called too much, too young, too fast. Okay.
Oh, sure.
So what that is like when you take like a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid from the streets and you give him an NFL contract, he's going to take all of the streets into the NFL contract, and now he's a kid who's actually very talented, and unless he's got like a lot of good people behind him, he's probably going to be too much, too young, too fast. Meaning that they're just going to take that and amplify all the things that they couldn't resolve when they were poor. Now they've got a lot of money and they can indulge themselves more in those things. So, but that's a principle that doesn't necessarily apply to just young people. So when I looked at, like, for instance, you look at Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson in 2016 was just this another, guy from Ottawa or Ontario, wherever, Toronto.
Ontario.
Yeah, Ontario, right? Who was a college professor, probably making maybe $80,000, $100,000 a year, whatever comparative it is to whatever they're paying.
$1 million a month.
To making $80,000 a month on Patreon. And then you see him selling out venues across the world. And people are willing to pay top dollar and fill concert halls to listen to him, talk for a couple hours. He's got a book that's an international bestseller. All he had to do was confront some wokesy kids in college, and suddenly he's the hero that we never knew we needed. And usually these guys last about 18 months, right? It's about a year and a half, 2 years tops, right? So they'll go from like what their mundane life was to, influencer or internet stardom. And again, you take the problems with you if you don't resolve them before you get there. So, he's hooked on benzodiazepine, right? He's hooked on painkillers. He's dealing with a lot of emotional stuff because his wife had cancer. I get it. I'm not unsympathetic. I understand what he was going through. But again, too much, too young, too fast. Now, he's not young, but he's young in the sense that this is all new to him. And so doesn't know how to manage himself, doesn't know how hell, I'm still trying to figure out how fucking social media works to my best effect right now. So you get into these positions where you had this old life where you were just comfortable in doing whatever the fuck you wanted to do. And you were drinking on the weekends, or maybe you did drugs recreationally or whatever. And then you go to being, an internet star, and the ego fuels the addictions, or it fuels the whatever it was that was a character flaw of yours before you were famous, or relatively subjectively so. So it's the too much, too young, too fast dynamic, but it's been sort of applied or carried over into sort of the influencer social media state.
And now I've got Too Young to Fall in Love in my head again.
Right.
So that is such a good song. Can we just say that?
For us old guys, has it become not enough, too slow and too old?
No, but we have to watch out for shit like that too, because we're unfamiliar with what's going to come next.
Yeah, that is true.
The phrase "too young" it doesn't necessarily have to mean an age.
Right.
It's just you're just new into you're
new
brand
to
new into a new area.
And everybody is, by the way. We're all making this shit up as we go along.
Yeah.
Especially with
I look like a guy
with the social media and the streaming stuff. Yeah, because it changes so fast. Everybody's just making it up as you go.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, do I look like a guy with a
MSU making shit up?
People ask me, like, how do you do? It's like,
and it's not just alcohol. It's like, maybe it could be prescription painkillers. It could be your ego. It could be you. Well, now you can
any vice. It could be you're the whores. You could be addicted to the whores.
Mm-hmm. Or you could, you have to, I will tell you this is what, when I transitioned from my gig economy into doing what I do now, like I was up until 2020, up until like pretty much all the clubs closed down. I was halfway in wine and spirits and halfway doing what I do right now. And the thing that pushed me over the edge was like 2020, you know, I'm like, okay, I'll just focus on this shit. But I will tell you, this is going from sort of the workaday world to the from my workaday world to the gig economy to the influencer economy or whatever, the hustle economy, whatever we're calling it. I realize right now the best decision I ever made was to stop drinking, because
how long's that been?
I'm more effective at it, and I also know that I have to be more like what's funny is like you would think you'd have to be more responsible when you're like working for somebody else and you're like an employee. No. You have to be more.
You got to jerk off more.
Responsible
guaranteed pay.
Yeah,
you have guaranteed pay. You can do the least amount of work possible just to maintain your job.
You'd be surprised how less responsible you can be when you work for somebody else.
That's
like
true.
The more not give a fuck you have, the more that they respect you. It's so weird. Like, because I've been getting that attitude more and more, and people are like, yeah, but he's good at what he does, so we just let him be. It's like, win-win.
So how do guys, okay, in the influencer economy, how do people fuck up their lives? It's too much, too young, too fast.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that they're in that. The other thing that they do is they become their brand. And so anything that comes out of their mouth is always on brand for them, right? So I see a lot of guys who will throw these insults back and forth saying, oh, you're just having an internet beef. Or you see like Myron go at Abba and preach, or back and forth, or whoever's fighting with whoever, right? You have to bear in mind that it's like, people want to say, oh, this is just petty bullshit. We should just resolve this like gentlemen really do offline. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Nobody does that, and nobody will do that, because everybody is their own brand of me. So when you attack someone's position, when you attack their belief set, especially like trad cons right now, who are very like emotionally invested in their own beliefs, and now they're taking that and they're turning it into revenue. Whenever you disagree with one of their points, you're not just disagreeing with the point, you're disagreeing with their revenue stream. You're disagreeing with their brand. So if their brand is built on a certain foundation of beliefs or a certain like lifestyle or whatever it is, and what the worst thing that could happen to you is if somebody comes along and go, you're a fraud, you're a hypocrite, you're this, you're whatever else, because it's not just an attack on you, it's an attack on your livelihood as well, because you are your brand. And if your brand is attacked, you are attacked.
And that's why you can't have a civil discussion
and your self-esteem is measured in subs.
Right. Debate's pointless. Debate is dead with them.
And yes. And how you feel about yourself after what, because you're if you're all brand and the only thing that spews from your mouth is on brand every time, because your personality has become associated with that brand. When you take
your revenue stream, your life, everything is associated.
You take a hit in likes, when you take a hit, and by the way, this is not just for guys. I mean, primarily this is like girls. The reason why they won't show their boyfriends on Instagram is for much of the same reason.
Yep.
You know, because
why don't we just go back to Jerry Springer days and just whoop everybody's ass legally?
Everybody. You know what? All of the internet is Jerry Springer. Yep. It all is right now.
No. But we need to go back to in-person Jerry Springer, where we can just like throw chairs and shit. Like, you know.
Glenn, you can just ask me for an actual thing, okay? I'm willing to give it.
So Rolo, I have a question, because the too young, too early, too fast. I think that's a common theme. Maybe Thor has some info from his field, but with fighting, it can be a major problem. Like too young, too soon, too fast type of thing. Some guys could put together a couple good fights, get into like a Dana White Contender Series, something like that, have a crazy fight, and then have one more crazy, the guy's had less than 10 fights, but he had like 2 or 3 really crazy fights that people thought were amazing. Well, now this guy's thrown up into a upper echelon of competition because he has notoriety. So people are going to expect him to fight other names. But this guy, the guy's a kid, they have a 18-year-old kid fighting for the UFC right now. And he's one of those guys. They pushed him hard because, he's the first youngest guy to do this. But he's too young, too soon, too fast, I think. And they throw him in with too big a competition, and he gets beat up. and now he's kind of got a glass ceiling above him because he needs more room to grow and get better and have more experience in fighting in the cage in that whole arena. But he can't go back because the fans expect him to be at a certain level because he's already competed at this level and the promotion's already pushed him. So it's not an uncommon thing. I think, you know, whether it's the creators on the internet making stuff or fighting, maybe, I don't know if
I was listening.
Has a
really
example
interesting
of
because
a
they have
lineman
real
or
life
somebody
too.
doing electrical work.
When Kanye West had his flame out recently, one of the things I honestly, I think the guy's really kind of whack, but one of the things he did say that I thought was actually a point of lucidity in the whole thing. He said this because he was just, I remember him talking about his come up story. And he said, when you become famous, you stop growing. And so like how old was he when he was like 24, when he became like a multi-million-dollar superstar kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, he was 23, 24 when he dropped.
Yeah, he was like 23, 24 years old when he did it. And then he says, you know, when you become famous, you stop growing because people start telling you what they think you want to hear. So you're surrounded by yes men, and they think that if you're like this talent, you're this natural talent that people like flock to, other people will develop their own like personalities and their own brands and their own business model based on your success. So when nobody will sit there and say memento mori, right? They won't say, you won't have a doomsayer. Everybody around you will just tell you what they think you want to hear, because if you're successful, you have the Midas touch, right? Whatever you do turns to gold. So they want to be around that and associate themselves with your natural talent, and they won't tell you this sucks or that's the wrong way to go. You won't have.
You get a bunch of yes men
arguing with fucking Zoomers.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I was just going to tell John, like, look, that's not too young, too fast, because I will give him a rear naked chokehold and armbar him.
Yeah, with the violence.
He's on screen right now.
You have unresolved violence issues. I know. You know what it comes from? It comes from talking to that dumb bitch, Angela. That's why you're trying to get.
Here we go. What did I tell you? What did I just tell you?
Okay, I told you guys in the chat, like, yo, give me the flack. I want to hear it. I want the criticism.
Okay, you know how you can improve next time?
What?
Don't do it.
That's what you do from my book.
That's how you do it. That's why I improve.
All right.
Was it was it Winston Churchill said you if you stopped along the way to throw rocks at every yapping dog, you'll never get to where you're going. You'll never march to where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
That's
true.
She's just another yapping dog. All the rest of these girls are just yapping dogs. They just want some attention. Every last one of them.
Is it me? Does John Finch look like the dude from V from Vendetta?
Who? No.
From Vendetta.
Hugo Weaving.
Finch is not. He's not quite there yet. If he gets another like 6 inches to that hair, then he can
be there.
He can join my band if he gets a little bit longer.
Hey man, I play ukulele.
You got to be the guy for V for Vendetta for Halloween.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Rob and I already have our plans for Halloween, and you guys are gonna love it.
The other thing I should also point out is like how not to fuck up your life. Also, is I mean, it's good to have a mentor. I had Pat Campbell as my mentor, so and he was a very good mentor in a lot of senses. He taught me how to have a radio voice, how to actually do what I'm doing right now. And then he also had a lot of good things to say, like just philosophically, as far as like who to deal with and who not to deal with and how long to deal with them. So having like, remember when I met Pat, how old was I? I was in my 40s at that time. And, you know, and Pat's old, he's an older guy. And so he's sort of mentoring me, but like, remember, just because you're older doesn't mean you can't find a mentor, right? And there's a really great book. It's Robert Greene's Mastery. Mastery's fantastic too. You can always be a student. You just have to bust yourself down and like, you know, check your own ego. Because if you want to learn something, like for instance, if I wanted to learn MMA fighting, I'm going to defer to John's authority on that because he knows way more than I do, even though I don't know how old you are, John. I'm probably older than you, John. So, but it's not like a seniority kind of thing. It's who has the experience and what can I learn from that person. So, and maybe John can sort of confirm this, is that like when I'm doing like Kali or when I've been working in martial arts, they will always say, you know, a black belt can still learn shit from a white belt, because that kid who's a white belt might instinctively think of some shit that you didn't think of as a black belt, and you go, holy shit, he's right, then so you incorporate that in. So it's not necessarily just because you're inexperienced doesn't mean that you won't stumble
I
upon
learned that
it.
in some business class a long time ago about outsourcing, like, because sometimes when everybody's in a group, everybody has the hive mind and nobody thinks originally because everybody's stuck in that group. So sometimes it's good to outsource to somebody outside of your group in order to get a different perspective. Right. So yeah, sometimes the white belt teaches you the lesson.
Well, it's also, you also need more than one mentor.
Like you'll have a 6-year-old kid ask you a question, and you'll freeze, and your mind will go.
I love that.
What did he do? What?
Now shit you take for granted. They're like,
you grab this, you grab the lapel here, and you put your hand here, and you step through here, and they go, why?
Yep. I love that.
Like, shut up and just do it.
That's the best part, John.
And it requires
start thinking through it. And I'll tell you the truth, when it comes to technique, a lot of people never ask why. They don't understand the why.
Yeah, and it requires like humility to do that, right?
Yeah.
Even as a black belt, to say, you know what, I can bust myself down and learn from this kid who's just a white belt, right? There's something. I mean, one little thing. I'm not saying like he's gonna teach you, but like the thing is he might know something, right? He might have like thought of something in a novel way that you didn't consider, or maybe that you took for granted. So there's that. But the other thing is, like, it's not just alcohol. It's not just benzodiazepine. It's also sort of mental states too. So like if you're sort of this inconsistent loser who's never been good with the girls and never made a lot of money, and suddenly you make a lot of money, you're taking that mindset that you had from when you were a broke ass loser into now I've got $10 million and I've got a platform and I've gone from hero to zero. That's when guys like self-destruct, because what happens is their egos tend to be invested in the fact that they made a lot of money, or they had one real recent success that sort of catapulted them into like the limelight and give them the platform and everything. And then they find that they can't repeat that success, because what happens is they will think that, hey, I wouldn't have this millions of dollars if I wasn't a fucking genius. So but that genius, that stroke of genius might have been just chance. It might have been the right place, right time, right niche, whatever it is that they're doing. And they just happen to be the first one to get into it. Like, for instance, if you look at a guy like Mr. Beast, like if you look at Mr. Beast, like the guy's worth got more money than God right now. And he set the standard for YouTube, but it's not because he's like super talented and he's a genius. He just got there before anybody else and started doing what pretty much everybody like figured out later on. He was just the first one to do it. So can you go and repeat that success? That's the real test. And what happens is when guys who don't have any real natural talent, or they just lucked into whatever they were doing, they try to repeat that and they can't. That's when they have this sort of crisis of identity. Like, well, am I a genius or am I not a genius? Because I could make $10 million and now I can't make more than $500,000 at my new idea. It's not because I'm actually a multi-talent. It's because I just had a stroke of good luck back in the early days.
Yeah, it's also like, when it comes to groups, like that's why men's groups are important, because you challenge ideas, you challenge each other, right? And it's like you never want just one mentor, because one mentor could only teach you one trick. Like I'm blessed to be in a position where I got Thor, I got Rollo, I could beat up John, I got good hair, like no, I can't beat up John. But if I wanted to look like pretty long hair and like look nice, I'll go to Jack. Jack, how do you get the wings to flow? Like how do you get that flow? Like I need to know.
Hair oil.
But it's like you have multiple mentors. Don't just put your eggs in just one person and think that this mentor is going to show you everything. Like
keep your eggs to yourself, sir. I don't.
Okay.
Here you go again with a fucking.
He's an acquired taste, Jack. He's an acquired taste.
Yeah, very acquired. Ask Rollo. He had to be with me. He had to drive with me all week.
Oh shit! I didn't get to prep your Rollo. Sorry.
Alien shit going on here.
But it's like you want to be able to challenge your thoughts. And guys these days are so emotional with this. It's like as soon as you challenge their thought, they think you're beefing with them. It's like, no, bro. I'm trying to edify you. I'm trying to put you through the fire so you could prove this thing. Like prove your worth.
Glenn, good point. And these are the same guys that think they can hold a chance with women. Like, guys, hate to break it to you, but you know what the fucking shit test is? You think male banter is hard. Try that shit.
Yes, exactly.
You wake up, you have coffee, boom. Like, get him. It's like,
Yeah.
you're not prepared, boys. You're not prepared.
Well, it's, and I think what's going to happen, like coming up in the future here, is like people are going to start applying this same model, I think, to sort of politics and just conspiracy theories and to, was it ethno-nationalism and stuff coming up in this the next 18 months or so in the election cycle.
It's fun. It's going to be
and
fun.
You're
Get
going to see,
popcorn, guys.
you're going to see, I think you're going to see like internet, like fame just sort of like handed over to children who are unprepared, too much too young, too fast, who are unprepared for
Oh
it.
yeah, like Biden has plans to meet with a group of 20-something influencers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be paid influencers. The government's going hardcore. People don't understand this. 2013, Obama made it legal for the U.S. government to do propaganda. They can
come on, that's a
mess with the
reality
news,
theory.
they can lie. They can lie to your face directly. It's legal, 100%.
Well, there's
those are reality theories. Come on now.
Yeah, I've been looking at right around, I think it was 2019, 2020, and I'm going to put my Alex Jones like tinfoil hat on here. There was a group of I guess kids, I want to say like probably like 18 to 24-year-old kids in China. And they were called the Wu Mao Army. I don't know if you guys heard of the Wu Mao Army. And the Wu Mao Army was basically, they were funded by the Chinese government to go online and create, Twitter bots basically, but they would go on there just to agitate, right? They would go on and like just to start shit. They were like egg accounts on Twitter or whatever social media, and they would go there just to like stoke like political division between like Democrats and Republicans. And they were there just as like sort of like thousands upon thousands of agent provocateurs, and they were paid. I guess is Wu Mao like a province or something in China? That's why they called them the Wu Mao Army. And I'm starting to see more of this sort of crop up. And I don't think it's necessarily just the Chinese. It could be like other actors as well. So. But again, it's that we live in an age of perception, and when we as human beings, we're never evolved to like sort of process all of this information all at one time. So we go with what's most expedient, that gives us a dopamine hit, what aligns with our sort of belief sets, and then we move on from there. And we think we're right, or we think that people will back us up, or we think that we're in the right tribe or on the right side of history, or whatever the fuck it is that they're promoting. But it's very easy to sort of, tap into that manipulation. But again, as far as like real understanding and real learning and taking the time to turn off the screen and actually go read a book or go, actually experience life and go do things like live in real time. I think more and more we are starting to live in our digital consciousness rather than our sort of like real consciousness. I don't know if you guys have heard of that concept.
Yeah.
It's like that movie Ready Play One. Already.
So right now there used to be like two kinds of consciousness. Well, like, internal conversations, let's just say. There's like your internal consciousness where you're having that internal conversation with yourself. And then there's your external consciousness, which is when you're dealing with like right now I'm dealing with you guys. It's external consciousness, right? Then there's what's developed into sort of our digital online consciousness in the last, like, say 20 years, ever since the internet started becoming a thing. And so it's like we're very comfortable writing out our thoughts, typing it out, or like popping off on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. That's our digital consciousness, because we're not talking to anybody. We're just talking on a grand, like, global scale, which, by the way, human beings have never had in the history of humanity been able to express an opinion on a global, worldwide level. So when we talk about like politics, when we talk about when we talk about belief sets, when we talk about things that are even religion, whatever, when we were, hunter-gatherer tribes of 150 or so individuals, all politics were local, right? But we were not used to talking to a global scale, and there were no nations, there were no countries, there were no nothing. It was just like these nomadic tribes that would move around, and that's what really we were evolved for up until the last, like, say 2,000 years ish.
I got
one question though. You said like they paid these people in Wuhan to do that, the troll.
Yeah, CCP would hire. It was called the Wu Mao Army, and they would have these guys basically create all these egg accounts so that, and because they would get banned, they would just agitate, get banned, and they'd had like 3 or 4 other alts that they would just jump to. And then
wait a minute, I'm doing it in the wrong country because they got paid for that shit, and I'm doing it for free.
Well,
Hey guys, I gotta run.
They get an extra chicken for their province, for their family, or some shit like that. I don't know exactly what the
Well,
pay
shit.
for.
I mean, I'll take some chickens. I get some fresh eggs.
Yeah.
You know, something. I
know.
troll for free. I'm in the wrong country for this business.
Well,
That's another thing people have to take into consideration is how much of the online discourse and banter is paid posters and bots.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of
Well,
those views are fake.
Ryan Chen says Wumao literally means 5 cents, so that must have been it, the 5 cent army.
Oh, never mind. I need to get paid more for my
5
flack.
cents.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
5 cents per post.
It's interesting that, like, you know, so in the music world, like I came up in the hip hop rap culture, and they're like, there's a difference between industry and industries, right? And everybody nowadays is industry. Like, you're not gangster, you're a fake gangster behind a screen. Because if I ever saw you, you would never act that way to me in person. You know, like you're tough with your keyboard, man. You got your apostrophes going and your exclamation points, and you're really saying something with your chest. But in person, you're not that man.
I can't block you, boy.
I caps lock all the time just to piss Rolo off when I'm in his chats.
The gangsters of the 90s that rapped and sold drugs, they gave way to the rappers today who bought the drugs and used the drugs.
Well,
more reality theories there now.
I think it's I'm going to quote Richard Hart, Hex founder, Pulse Chain founder Richard Hart. He says one of his quotes is what is it? Ladies, liquor, and leverage will get you wrecked. Oh. And so, like, if you want to avoid fucking up your life, just like repeat that to yourself. That should be your mantra. Liquor, lady, what was it? Ladies.
So yeah, so that's a good thing. We should kind of recap, right? Impulse control, right? That's a big thing about effing up your life. Substance, alcohol, weed, coke, whatever, all those things, those can really F up your life. Too soon, too much, too soon, too early. Too much can be a problem, right? Yeah. Too much, too wrong, too fast.
You got to remember that also applies to your money. Okay, so like I'll give you a couple of examples here. When Kevin Samuels died, he was worth $4.5 million. Okay, that $4.5 million that he had, like, you know, for him to himself, whatever, that he made that in the last 18 months of his life. Okay, before he was just hawking, you know, men's fragrances, and then he decided to do men's style and all this other shit. He wasn't even a come up until 18 months before he passed away. $4.5 million in 18 months. At least, man, you could argue maybe 2 years, but like still, that's a very short amount of time, a lot of money in a very short amount of time. What are you going to do with that money? Okay, so if you're going to use that money to sort of fund your addictions, or if you're going to use, and I'm not saying that's what happened with him, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to use that money to fund your addictions that you're bringing from your old life into your new life, that's where it's going to be a problem. The other thing is that you can look at, say, like Myron and Fresh, for example. When I met them in January, I went out to Miami in January of 2021 to do their, you know, some of their first shows. And this is before there were like girls getting, you know, castled off the show. I would go out there and they would pick me up in a rented, you know, Land Rover, you know, to impress me. You know, hey, Rolo's visiting. Let's impress Rolo. And by August of 2021, Fresh has already bought his first McLaren. So that should give you an idea about too much too young, too fast. Now, the good thing about it is, like, Fresh has a good head on his shoulders. He's very business savvy. He's very network savvy, and he doesn't drink. And so he's very appreciative of his position where he's at, because he came from basically nothing. But he wasn't carrying over any like real demons into his new life. So and then you look at Myron as well, doesn't party, doesn't drink, you rarely see him at clubs. He works out, he does the show, and that's pretty much all you know about Myron, because he doesn't have a really extensive like Instagram where he's like talking about how he's a come up, or you don't see him on yacht parties. You'll see Fresh doing that, but you won't see Myron doing stuff like that. Myron is taking his money and investing it into property. He puts it into real estate, and he's very wise with the money that he has, because you never know when the chuck wagon is going to pull out. So, making those good decisions is great, but they are a rare exception in a world where where guys want to take their money and they'll put it into really bad investments, or they want to ladies, liquor, and leverage, right? They want the leverage part of that is making bad decisions with your money, because you've never had any education in how to wisely invest money, how wisely to secure your bag. It's one thing to get the bag. It's another thing to secure the bag. So when people ask me, what do rich, powerful men want? They want security. They want to know that the bag is always going to be there, that they're not when the next recession or depression or whatever civil unrest happens, that they're going to be set. That's what they're really looking for, is security, making sure that they can keep that shit. Most guys don't even think past hey, I got a lot of money, what I'm going to do with it. Let's
now when these guys
ESPN, it was an ESPN, I think 30 for 30, and it was about the baller thing, because that was a big thing in the 90s and early 2000s, was the baller lifestyle. So they went through all of these pro athletes who walked into the scene making millions of dollars, and then they're playing 2, 3, 5 years, and then they get out of the league, and then they're broke, because they didn't know how to regulate their spending.
Mm-hmm.
They're making $20,000 a month or $50,000 a month while they're playing, and they're spending 55, putting themselves in a little bit of debt, and then their career ends, and now they don't have a job, they don't have any skills, they have debt, and then their spending habit doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. I went to Miguel dragged me to PulseCon in October of last year, and I'm meeting up with guys who know I couldn't walk through PulseCon without having half a dozen people pull me over and say, "Hey, Rolly, you saved my life. Let me get a selfie with you." And I didn't even know who these people were, right? I didn't even know that they knew who I was.
First, you saved my life.
But I'm super popular in that sphere, right? And I'm like, why am I popular in this sphere? And why is this sort of this untapped audience? Well, a lot of these guys are crypto millionaires, right? They just made money within the last year to 18 months. And they got some really hot bitch that's hanging with them. And you look at the girl and you look at him and you go, there's no way in a normal world that kid gets with that hot, that choice of chick right there. And it's because the guy's got, overnight millionaire, relatively overnight millionaire. And they don't know that they're going to get rolled by a chick a predatory chick who's going to who's just only along for the ride. She's with you for as long as the market's on top, it's a bull market, then she sticks around. Right?
That's what I was going to say next was the drugs, the alcohol, the partying, that's all bad. That can get you in trouble too. But not having the discernment and not being able to vet women property is just as bad as a drug, as the alcohol.
Choosing the wrong woman in your life is,
or even being able to choose a woman in the first place. Most of these guys never had.
Let's take this super chat real quick, and then let's get into that choosing the wrong woman.
And then so that also again, that everything feeds synergistically back into this ego investment in our own successes. So when it's I've got $1 million, I must be a fucking genius because look at all the money I've got. I must be right because I wouldn't be as paid as I am if I wasn't correct.
That is incorrect.
This bitch, she wouldn't be sucking my dick if I wasn't a genius, because I'm a genius because I got $10 million in my bank account right now. And so it's you can't argue with the numbers. You can't argue with the bag. No, you can't, at least in the now. Can you repeat it? Can you save it? Can you secure it? Can you use it wisely? Are you a better person? Are you more mature as a result of that? Did you learn?
Part of that, I think, is because we've shifted what's good to dollar signs. It's just a dollar sign. What's the number in dollars? How much did you get paid for it? It has nothing to do with quality of work or how did you grow as a person or individual. It's all just dollar signs. What was the price tag? That's it.
It's the Joe Rogan. It's the Joe Rogan effect. It's the Joe Rogan effect. When Joe Rogan was on YouTube, he was making a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. He was the shit. And then I really felt like Joe Rogan was doing his best work when he was on YouTube because he was hungry for it, and he still had to sort of
he didn't have anybody pulling his strings and telling him not to say stuff.
Then along comes Spotify and they give him $100 million
and they tell him to shut the fuck
phoning
up.
it in. Yep. Yeah. He's not hungry anymore.
He had
And
he had to make a 20-minute apology video for saying the N-word.
Yeah.
That he's been saying like aggressively
Constantly.
his whole life.
You know what? I think everybody should get their
he grew up in
23andMe.
Boston in the 80s. He didn't use that word like all the time. Get out of here.
Everybody should get their 23andMe done, like I did, and find out they're 7% African, and you could say it all day long.
Point three.
See that, Glenn,
According to the one drop rule, I'm a person of color.
Something. I don't know.
Well, here, the super chat is interesting, Rolo. He says, how much is our instinct, our wiring, do you think plays a role in our own demise when growing too big, too fast?
Well, I think it kind of comes back to well, I think was it Myron who said this?
That false sense of
Myron,
expertise, maybe.
I think Myron was quoting
Sense
somebody
of-
else.
It's like a sense of
fast money brings like fast problems or something like that.
oh,
or
big
whatever.
more money, more problems. More money, more problems.
Yeah, and so
That was a biggie quote.
you're gonna drag your old problems in. But I think our instincts, as far as our wiring is concerned, if you go and you look at like it's what's called evolutionary or genetic mismatch, right? We aren't evolved to drive cars. We're not evolved to like do what we do all day long. You'll see like Alex Hormozy, or you'll see what Huberman talk about how you need to get out first thing in the morning and just have like 10 minutes of sunlight and, you know, go breathe the fresh air before you go and do your shit, you know, and have this ritual. Or you got David Goggins talking about how like he gets up at 4 a.m. and does all this shit before he even turns on a computer. Like shit that like just like maybe 10, 20 years ago was just basic, like, you know, this is just life for us, right? But we're trying to get back to this ideal that is really but we can sell a pre-genetic mismatch lifestyle on a post-genetic mismatch internet right now. Like Aaron Clary and I talk about this all the time. It's like common sense is so rare that you can commodify it now online. So when we're looking at like guys who are the too much, too young, too fast thing, it's dopamine versus serotonin at that point. It's like, what gives me the most immediate pleasure? What do I it's pleasure seeking. And not that that's not that living hedonistically is like our predisposition. So we think of it as being wrong. And in some cases, when it leads to like really bad antisocial effects, yes, it can be very wrong. But there's always going to be like, we're always going to want to overeat. We're always going to want to eat fat, starchy, sweet foods because that's just how we're wired. That's how we evolved, right? So if you tend to overeat and suddenly you go from making $60,000 a year to $600,000 a year, now you're hugely overweight because now you can afford all the Twinkies you want to fucking eat, right?
Well, it's like we need to learn discipline. Discipline is not natural for us. We don't like it either. We don't like I mean, Finch, I'm sure you didn't like getting the discipline when you're first getting into the wrestling and getting on the mat, right? Getting your ass kicked all the time. It wasn't fun. But as you embrace discipline and as you embrace it and it becomes you learn to love it.
There's an element of fun to it.
Yeah, because after a while,
because I wasn't good at wrestling. I didn't start to win really until I was in 7th grade.
That's why I'm going to tap you out. That's why I'm going to tap you out. No, I'm kidding.
Go ahead, Thor.
Yeah, so I just want to get back to the topic on don't fuck your life up. And one of the things this happens to even just your normal tradesmen that come up too fast, too young, you know, all at once sort of things. And what happens is those guys, they work really, really hard and their locus of control is there. And so when they achieve this very quickly, they don't shift their locus of control. So in many ways, it's a loss of control. They have a loss of control, and here comes the sedations because that's a control mechanism for them to adjust to it. And I see guys go broke all the time because they start earning this big money and they just start kind of going crazy, and it starts to spiral them out of control. A good percentage too, about 30%. And it happens in their personal life. I mean, I got to say, I would think that in my industry, the divorce rate or starter wife rate is probably double that of any other industry. Now, I don't have any facts or figures, but they get so much so fast, so young. Imagine coming up being an 18-year-old kid, and in 2 years, you're making, you know, over $100,000. Some gal comes along and snaps them up, and boy, it just, you can see it happen almost exactly like clockwork. Too much, too fast is a real thing, even in there. But I do think there's something about that focus and that control that somebody has to earn that so quickly, and it self justifies. Well, I wouldn't have got there if I wasn't right. And then it becomes this self-righteous thing, you know. Of course I can do all this. I can handle my liquor. I can't tell you how many times guys will tell me, I don't drink that much. You know, and it just continues to go on and on and on. And in a way, it seems like some of those guys drink because it is a form of control. I can at least control me being fucked up, you know, and it becomes all consuming at some point. So I just wanted to add that I think a big part of this is that they keep doing the things they did to get them there very, very quickly, instead of shifting that focus into the long term, where you delay some gratification and you learn those skills over time.
What I see happen is guys will do this. They'll come up with like it's kind of like the product launch formula kind of thing, right? It's these guys who come up with a great offer. Like they're like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And then finally they get that one fucking hit, right? That like makes them like a lot of fucking money, right? And so because of that one hit, and because of all the status that they get after that, the fame they get after that, the money that comes after that, they had a good idea, right? They capitalized on it before anybody else did. That doesn't make you a genius. What makes you a genius is being able to repeat that and keep it and to do it one more time and say, you know what, I'm so smart. I'm an ideas guy, right? I've got 5 books to my name right now. I think I'm pretty much an ideas guy. I am in no way a millionaire. I think people think I am way more paid than I am. But I am an ideas guy, and that's why I probably will never reach that kind of money, because I'm more focused on like what I want to like create, what I want to like. I could probably be way more monetized than I am right now, but to me, it's more important to sort of like make my ideas a reality at this stage. But
more important,
to put value on something other than the dollar sign.
That's
well, yeah, Rolo, could you like go through the archetype again?
I think that's a big thing a lot of people miss. Like if you were just in it for the dollar sign, you would have a much different approach to what you're doing.
You would do it, and you're
a craftsman. You care. You give a shit about what you're producing.
Right.
You put more value in the art you're creating, in a sense.
Right? Well, that plays rather into the archetypes that Rolo was talking about.
Dollars.
Go ahead, Glenn.
That plays into the archetypes that you were talking about the other night in the sphere. Like, you know, you're talking about there's these 5 archetypes:
hustlers, reactors, holy rollers, the pastors, the men's ministry guys.
But like his kind of lines, what you're saying, like they're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and like, oh, this is my brand now. You know, this is gonna.
They rely on other people to create their content for them. Is what they do. They're facilitators. They're entertainers. They're mostly reactors, and by the way, they can be combinations of those too as well. So, like if you look at Abba and Preach, they do nothing. They haven't produced a damn thing. You look at I don't just pick on them. You look at MTR, you look at any of these other guys, they don't produce anything. They don't have any ideas. They don't have a book. They don't have a program. They don't have any kind of like, hey, I'm on a mission to do X, Y, and Z. There's no product. It's all reacting to other people's ideas. And that's so important. The product is the reaction video, whatever the latest, controversy happens to be. But the people who are creating that controversy are people who have ideas.
I think that's really important.
And so if you want to avoid fucking up your life, don't rely on other people to generate your content for you. If you are really a success, if you were a genuine, a guy who is an ideas guy, you would be producing stuff. You wouldn't be reacting and talking about other people who are producing stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's definitely, part of all that, but like the,
so
that's always been around, though.
Question, particularly for you, right? For John, for Glenn,
hold up,
for all of us.
Go ahead.
Think of it this way. I mean, for us to teach patience, delayed satisfaction, you need those ideas. Those are not sexy. And that's the category you get. Even with those ideas you have, they're amazing. But how do you get that through? Because the sexiness right now is that quick hit reaction.
Right. Well, here's what happens. Here's what happens is the too much, too young, too fast thing. This is usually the progression of it. Is like you come up with a really good idea, you make a shit ton of money, and then you can't repeat that. So what happens is rather than once you realize you're not the ideas guy that you thought you were, then you become an expert on success. Right. Y'all. Well, I was look, I have $10 million and I can't repeat that success with the one idea that I happened to stumble into. But now I'm an entrepreneur. Now I'm a motivator. Now I am an inspiration to the youth and the young. That's why when I always kind of balk when people ask me like, Rolo, what kind of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self? None. Zero.
Yes,
because I would not listen to an old fuck like me. I get the fuck out of here. I'm old man. I'm going on. I would not listen to me at 18. But because that question's not what it is. It's what advice would you give to people who are like sort of like in their come up stage, right?
Because you couldn't listen.
That's different. Yes. And but what happens is people will go from their initial success that they can't repeat, and then suddenly because they have that $10 million or whatever that initial success, they want to sell you on some idea that they have a formula or a secret of how they go about that. And it can be they can just pull like quotes from like Confucius Say or the Tao Te Ching or whatever it is that's like sort of this pithy kind of truthy, Eastern by the way,
a lot of those.
I had this challenge with Mike Sartain, by the way. I said, all you have to do is go get like the Tao Te Ching, or you can go get like the Wisdom of Confucius.
Yeah.
Copy and paste that, put it into some sort of like, inspirational quote on Instagram. Boom, and you will go instantly viral for stuff like that because people just eat that shit up like M&Ms, man.
Hey,
let's not forget Marcus Aurelius in there too.
Yeah.
I gotta go, but I want to say like this. Like I think like the best advice I could give anybody that's listening to this shit about getting in, like not fucking up your life. Find a group of men that are gonna fucking challenge you and tell you you're stupid. Mm-hmm. All right, like seriously, join MOA.
What is wrong
join
with you?
the
What are you doing?
ship.
You're fucking your life.
Join. Don Finch's camp up there if you're up there. Join somebody that's gonna tell you you're a fucking idiot when you're a fucking idiot, and let them challenge you. And don't take it vaginally and get all personal about it. Just take it and learn and grow. Just take it on the chin. It's not pretty. This is not pretty. Okay, you're not gonna get pretty here. We're gonna man you the fuck up, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna challenge your ideas. We're gonna test you, and that's how you get strong. That's all I gotta say. But I gotta get back on the road, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
All right.
Peace.
Go Knights.
He's a character.
The other part of that, Thor, is more to your point. Thor is a lot of people when they're listening to sort of motivational speakers, like those guys who like had a success and now suddenly they want to write a book and tell you about their come up story and everything. Those dudes, like the people who that applies to or that it appeals to, I should say, are looking for a secret. They're looking for some hack. They're looking for the cheat codes, right?
Codes, yeah.
So you couldn't write this book, right? People say, Rolo, how did you become such a great guitar player? When I see you play, it's like, you're fantastic. It must be a God-given talent. Well, yeah, but it's a lot of practice. Me sitting down in woodshedding the whole time. Oh, but Rolo, you make it look so easy. It must be such a great thing to be so talented and naturally gifted. And well, yeah, but it's a lot. What's the secret to your success? Practice. I go and I bust my ass and
hard work.
Show and go to rehearsal, right?
Repetition.
How do you come up with these ideas? How do you do all this stuff? You write this, you do all this stuff. Like, and I'm applying this to myself. It could apply to anybody, right? Practice. I put in the hours to go and do that. But the thing is you don't write a book on practice.
Yep.
People don't want to hear that the secret to your success is 60-hour fucking work weeks.
Let me ask you this.
About that. You know what they care about? They care about what you ate for breakfast. They care about
let me ask you this, Rolo and Thor.
Or what your hack was, or some secret to your success. That will sell a book. What doesn't sell a book is 60 hours of busting your ass every week to get to that point.
Are you guys on time to things? Do you guys show up to meetings and things on time that you schedule?
I'm minutes
early. Yeah, nobody's gonna buy that book.
Nope.
How a secret to my success? I showed up on time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Have you guys watched
that? people don't even understand that. Like, we're talking about big things about not effing your life up.
Mhm.
Well, that's one of those things, like being consistently late to things, disrespecting other people's time. I think that's a surefire way to F your life up too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
well,
another risk out there with fucking your life up. I'll
Yeah.
tell you this: if you don't fuck up anything in your life, you fucked up. So
Yeah.
to not fuck up your life, you actually are going to have to fuck some things up.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that too. You're going to fall for the dude. I could tell you, I got more failures than I have successes in my life, period.
Same.
I didn't like people always. I love it when people give me this. This is my favorite critique. Like, well, Rolo, man, you just had things easy. You had things given to you. You had this. You're privileged. Blah blah blah. Or Rolo, you always did all the right things. Like, dude, no. The reason I was able to write what I have and where I'm at right now is because I fucked up so many things, way more. I'm the product of my failures. I'm a product of my successes. So it's like, because I learned from those things and I grew from those things and I built myself up as a result of that, coming back from that. Yeah. And I know that sounds like really, woo-woo motivational David Goggins kind of shit, but like it's true. Like I learn more from we all learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. Like when I have a guy, if I'm doing a one-on-one, or like the guys that I'm sort of like counseling and stuff, the worst thing I can hear from guys is like, Rolo, I finally got laid, right? Oh, Rolo, I finally got X, Y, and Z. I finally did what, I was doing this. I was applying this. I figured this stuff out. Thanks for helping me out. And then what they'll be like, I got a girlfriend now. Thanks, Rolo. See you later. Got it from here. Bye. Like that right there is more dangerous than the rejection, because you don't learn from your successes. You only learn from or most people don't only learn from their mistakes. So what I do is when somebody says, hey man, I got a number closed, or I fucked this girl finally, I go, okay, what did you do right? And what could you have done better? Right. Just because you're a success, you have to, I think it requires more mental focus to dissect what led up to our successes rather than it does to like learn from our failures and our rejections. So I stop these guys and I say, look, what did you do right? And what could you have improved the next time that you like are talking to a girl, or you're getting a job, or you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing? Because it's more important to stop and look at those things, because we're so wrapped up in the success and we think that, again, it's the genius thing. I'm a genius. I succeeded. Look, I'm great. And then you move on to the next thing. You don't really analyze your success.
Yeah.
Yes. And children with dynamite is another thing too. Well, I mean, that's a chapter from one of my books, and I stole that line from Ross Jeffries, by the way. But it's yeah, it is a good illustration. It's Dream Girls and Children with Dynamite. And this sort of applies, like how not to fuck up your life. Analyze your successes, more so scrutinize your successes more than your rejections, if applicable, anyways. Because when you are given the keys to the castle, or somebody hands you like the keys to a Lamborghini, and your first impulse is to go take it up to 210 miles an hour on the Autobahn or whatever, that doesn't mean you know how to drive that car. Just because you have the keys just you have the ability to do something doesn't mean you have the knowledge to actually do so wisely, or how to do so effectively or pragmatically. But when you're looking at the shiny car, or you're looking at the hot bitch that you're with, you're like, well, I wouldn't have this hot bitch if I wasn't a fucking genius. And then that feeds into your ego. And then the ego is what your brand is built on. That's the danger. That's why I keep talking about the Ziggy Stardust effect. Like in my latest book, it's like Ziggy Stardust,
identity. Sure.
Yeah, it's identity. Like we become the characters, the personas that we create online, to the point where those personas are generating. That's also our livelihood. So not only is our egos measured in likes and subs and follows and stuff, our money is also intimately tied to that as well. So that's why people get so defensive when somebody challenges them on their ideas.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting, that whole concept, because it's like your ego becomes the super ego and part of your unconscious id, and it becomes you. If you fake it enough, it's not fake anymore. It is you.
Yeah. And that's the problem. That's why David Bowie had to kill off Ziggy Stardust, because Ziggy was taking over, because people reinforced that personality. It was a character he created for like one album. Right. But it was such an immersive, seductive character for him that he started to play live in that role. It was role playing for him, but he started that role started to become another personality to him, and he hated that. He didn't want to. He wanted to be David Bowie, which, to his credit, thank God, because he's much more effective as David Bowie than he ever would have been as Ziggy Stardust. But he kept. That's why he never went back to it. He never. I mean, he still plays the songs occasionally, but he never did like a reunion or tried to do a 10-year anniversary of Ziggy Stardust kind of thing, because it was so popular that people started calling him Ziggy. And he started accepting that. And now we have a generation of Ziggy Stardusts who believe
I think there is a problem with that, Rolo. I think there's a lot of identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
There is an identity crisis with young people and even people approaching middle age. They've been adopting their identities from those around them, or even their careers, to the point where it's not real.
Yeah. Or it's
all virtual reality.
But it's become, they're dependent on it. They're dependent on their platforms. They're dependent on, ego-wise, they're dependent on their subs and their follows and their likes and the comments and everything. And not only are they dependent ego-wise, but they're also dependent on it financially. So they don't get the hot bitch if their likes aren't up, if the numbers aren't up, if the analytics aren't right, if they're not making as much money, or they're not making more money than they made last year, then they're just sort of, existing. And again, what happens is it's usually this 18-month cycle. It's usually about a year and a half. People will be, like in the influencer economy, people will be super popular for about 18 months, and then they're replaced by somebody else.
So we can even boil this down further, Rollo and John. Think of it this way too. It just dawned on me. We can separate this into male and female. The females that have gone on the Instagram at this point have adopted their Instagram personalities. This has been going on for much longer than 18 months, and we are watching them crash and burn with those identities now as real life hits them. And as you've discussed before, they hit epiphany, or they hit that alpha rediscovery phase and look around and they're in an empty room, but they got that ego still, or that identity that they have.
So they got a great life virtually. They got a great life online, but
you can learn a lot from that.
I'll tell you, it's like, I'm looking at the chat and it's like, we need more likes. Well, here's the funny thing is like likes, comments, subs are all vanity metrics. If you know anything about YouTube analytics, especially YouTube, if you know anything about YouTube analytics, you know that subs mean nothing to your click-through rate. They mean nothing to your impressions percentages. They mean nothing. Like, the only thing that really matters to the algorithm on YouTube is CTR, click-through rate, your impressions, meaning like how often is your video suggested, and then audience retention. Those are the three analytics that anybody who knows their shit really focuses on YouTube. But when people tell me like, Rollo, this guy's got, or Pearl's got 1.5 million subs and you only got like 215, so that means you're less than she. No, it doesn't. Not at all.
When you go through their comments and you see how many bots are saying the exact same thing, like they have fake life, they have fake interactions.
You guys remember? Maybe you guys do, and maybe you don't. But I remember in August of 2021 when Abba and Preach came at Myron and Fresh, and they lost like something like close to 40,000 subs in the month of August, and they were pushing. That was right before they got quite to 400,000 subs, and people thought, "Oh man, this is the end of Fresh and Fit. Look, they lost 40,000 subs." You know what? It's just a controlled burn. They didn't care. They were.
You got to do it. You got to burn away the dead word.
Here's some homework for the people playing the home game. Go to playboard.co. Look up who the number one super chatted show on planet fucking Earth is right now. It's not going to be Mine and Fresh, but if you look in the top 10, they're like number 4, number 5, depends on what it is. They don't care about subs. They care about the money that's coming in from the super chats. Is what they care about. So if you go and you look and go back to like August 2021 and look who the number one most super chatted show is worldwide and in the United States. They were the number one most super chatted show in the United States during the month of August in 2021. They made $120,000 in super chats just because of all that controversy. Do you think that they gave two shits about losing 40,000 subs? Would you rather lose 40,000? Would you trade 40,000 subs for $120,000 in 1 month? Like, that's the kind of numbers that you're looking at. So when people tell me like, "Oh, you don't have enough subs," or if you're measuring the esteem or the status of a fucking channel by subs, you are gravely mistaken. It's just vanity. It's a vanity metric. People
subs are a weird thing.
When I hear people talk about that,
Focus on quality work, people.
It's a
All
strange.
right, hey, we're approaching.
I gotta get going.
We got a couple super chats I pinned. I'm gonna go through those real quick. Let's see. Chuck the Painter saying, "Do humans really able to fully perceive their own worth in accordance to becoming rich and famous people?"
I think so, but only in the sense that people will grant them status. Like that's status economics is what it is. And by the way, our assumption of like what contributes to our self-esteem status wise is like completely different than what it was just 20 years ago, because we judge our status by what on, like I said, likes and subs and all that stuff. Whereas prior to that, like for generations that lived prior to the internet, it was like if you want to be,
I would say treatment in your social circle.
if you, like I remember I was thinking about this too, because I was this is the shit I think about when I'm walking through airports. In like the mid 80s, if you were on MTV, which like what the fuck is MTV? If you were on MTV in the mid 80s and you were playing in a band or whatever, your status was like astronomical because you were so talented and so important that people were making music videos of you, and you were going on and talking to the VJs and all this other shit. But now a kid can produce a music video and put it up on Spotify or whatever. Like I can produce everything on this computer that I used to spend all kinds of money to produce a 4-song demo, tape or CD or something, just so I could give it to A&R or R execs. It was like, it was an act of God to get something done like that. I can do it. I can do it on my freaking iPad now. If I wanted to do it.
Remember how expensive
when the kids are going to figure out the AI too,
the lesson to that is that what we consider status now is very much cheapened as a result of like our fact that we don't put the practice in to go and get those things. So we tend to be much more impressed by virality right now, which can be manipulated. All I did was post one like kind of abrasive tweet, and I got fucking Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro and Lauren Chen, and I got all these people want to talk. I went on Dr. Phil, and I was talking about like how masculinity is only celebrated when it looks like femininity. Fox News picks up on that. Now suddenly my esteem and my status goes up as a result of that, but I know that it's temporary. So our esteem and our status from an evolutionary perspective is very real, because socially we want to be high status, high value guys or whatever. But it's very easy to manipulate the cues that we use to perceive status now. So if I want to go and if I want to go and take a picture like standing next to Fresh's like Lamborghini, and I want to put that on my Instagram, and some chick who doesn't know me sees that, they go, "Oh fuck," even if they think it's fake, they still see I'm standing by a Lamborghini, and I must know somebody who does own a Lamborghini. So having like real status versus having sort of like perceptual status, it's very easy to manufacture those cues right now of fame and pre-selection and social proof that are here today and gone tomorrow. When you see like all these guys or these girls on OnlyFans who are like worried that AI is going to sort of like take over their business, it's because that business of being sexy and doing all this shit on OnlyFans is all based on perception. That's all images. It's all smoke and fucking mirrors. And that is a reminder that a computer algorithm can take that away from them.
All right. And last super chat here. All right. Says, Rolo, would it be fair to say that most people work very hard on stuff that doesn't amount to anything really significant? So when they see success, they always defer to there must be something fishy about it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we tend, especially now, we tend to be more skeptical of
lucky. They call you lucky.
Exactly. Or it's you're privileged, or there has to be some sort of you cheated in some way. You cheated. Like people are asking me like, especially after last show, like they go, Rolo, are you on TRT now? I started TRT back in January because Mike talked me into it. But let me explain something to you about TRT. You don't just shoot like TRT in your ass and you become like super muscular. It's not steroids. You actually have to go to the gym to build the fucking muscles. It doesn't just like,
no, say it's not so.
I'm going to take it. So. Let's go. You have to fucking
you immediately become Arnold.
Yes. Well, I did change. I've changed my diet and I've changed a few things about like my lifestyle. The number one thing is I moved into this studio, which is my new home, the Red One studio. I moved here and I can literally walk to my gym from where I'm at right now. So I'm at the gym a lot more these days because it's very convenient for me to skateboard over there. And I have a longboard. Thank you very much. I skateboard over there, I work out and I come back. So I'm constantly doing that. And then on top of that, I have 2 very active greyhounds that are my cardio trainers. And it's all hit training too, because they run as fast as they can from one bush or one rabbit to the next and they dead stop. So it's like the perfect workout for me. So if I look a little bit more yoked lately, that's why. But they think it's a cheat, right?
It's not even that.
You didn't really earn that. Get the fuck out of here, man.
You're at normal physiological levels.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's not steroids. It is exactly what your body produces. Exactly.
Yeah.
Administered by medical professionals to within the range that is physically normal.
Yeah. I don't shoot it myself. Trust me. I go to a clinic to do it. So
we'll have to get that fixed.
Just to try. Yeah, I know. A lot of people do. Like Mike does it on his own too. I don't know. I'm like a weird with needles, I guess. But no, I mean, anyways, it's the same thing. It's like people want to say that you cheated, right? Because they're not doing anything, and suddenly, like, people don't want to see you improve. That's the thing. It's not, I don't want to say it's jealousy. It's just that people don't want to see you like rise above them. They don't want to.
It makes them feel uncomfortable because you're working hard, you're achieving things, you're doing more than them. They're going to feel
reminder that they're not
doing about it.
Yeah. Or they'll say, well, he must have figured something out. Like it must be a cheat code. That's what I was saying before. Rather than like the book that doesn't sell is I work 60 hours a week to bust my ass so I have what I have. Right. I'm constantly doing stuff. Like I have people who are asking me about like sort of the shit that's been going on on the internet and everything. I keep pointing back to these guys and I say, look at the guys who are coming at me, or look at the guys who are going at each other, or whatever. Look at who's doing shit and who's not doing shit. Right. Mm-hmm. I point back and I go, I can tell you all the stuff I've done in the last year, like even like the last like 10 months. Right. You know, I put out another book. I've been working on Access Vegas. I went on Dr. Phil and kicked his ass. I look at all the shit that I have done in just 10 months, right? What have these other guys done? Talked about other people, talk shit about other people. That's
about you.
Fucking do.
Talk about you.
This is here's the official announcement. I'm working on a brand of whiskey with Miguel right now, where we're going to do a private label of whiskey. That's going to be a masculine sort of like a red, whiskey for the red pill kind of thing. So we're working on that right now. So that's one thing. Another thing is I've been going to all these conferences. I've been going to, podcast after podcast. I went on whatever. I hang out with Justin. I work with Mike on other things. I do MOA. I've got like all these irons in the fucking fire and I'm constantly doing stuff. And you know what? It requires a lot of fucking work. It's not like what I ate for breakfast that morning. It's not like some like secret mantra or meditation, regimen that I do. Right? It's it's not Brazilian power crystals or shit.
Nobody wants to know that shit, Roldo. Nobody wants to know that.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that shit. They just care about what's going on at the time. It's everything is too long. Didn't read. I'll leave you with this. There was I'm sure you guys have heard of the writer Michael Crichton. He died a while back, but like he's the writer for like Jurassic Park and some other he has other great stuff too. But in one of his books, he coined this term called temporal provincials. And what that means is, and you can look this up, temporal provincials. And what it is it's a generation. So it's like sort of this demographic of people who don't care about the past and they don't care what's coming in the future. They only live what is going on right now. That's the only thing that's important. And so they're just sort of like living right here, right in the moment. And that's all they do. They don't think about what's coming down the pipe. They don't think about planting a tree, and they don't give two shits about like what happened in the past. The only thing they focus on is what they're at right now. And I can see that like Generation Z they're almost entirely temporal provincials at this point. And maybe it's because of their being raised online. Maybe it's because they just, they just don't have the background. But they don't know and they don't care. Too long didn't read. It's the too long didn't read generation. So you want to not fuck up your life? Like take the time to turn off the fucking computer, turn off your phone, look at people around you, read a fucking book, go out and experience shit. You're not and don't film it. Don't use it as content. If you're an influencer, your whole fucking life is content. Even the worst parts is content. Like get out of that headspace thinking that everything has to be content and everything's monetizable. go out and do things just for the sake of education, because education is its own reward.
Yep. Talent stack. Learn things.
Yep.
All right, guys. We're a little after 10, so let's start wrapping up. Let's go. Thor, what do you have coming up? What's going on?
Well, I'm going to do a broadcast real shortly here. Don't know if I'm going to go in 15 minutes or in the next hour and a half. I kind of play it by ear today for the Dragon Ship, but you can find me at becomedurable.com. And of course, you can also look for the Rule Zero merch on my Redbubble. Just search RP Thor and you can pick up whatever you like, whether you want a cup, coffee mug, or if you want the official Rule Zero notebook. You got yours, Rollo.
I think Glenn was going to
bring them to you. Or
yeah,
did he keep them for himself?
I don't have one of those yet, but I do have this one now. So I got this one.
All right. Well, that's
right here.
He's supposed to bring you some of those notebooks, you know.
Yeah, by the way, I sort of like gave permission to anybody who wants to use the logo or whatever. I get to use the fly. None of you guys get to use the fly.
Fly's good, man. It fits really well.
People don't understand the reference to the fly.
All right, Rolo, what do you got going on?
Thanks,
so tomorrow I'll be on my show, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to teach you guys why you're not happy. And you never will be. You're never going to be happy. It's all gloom and doom tomorrow.
Is that why? And also why it's a good thing?
And it's a good thing that you're not happy. Happiness is a proximate goal, not an ultimate goal.
Right.
And so I'm going to dig into that because it relates to a lot of this other shit that's going on right now. So
we got a last second super chat here. It says, fellas, you need to do a review on the book, Why Men Love Bitches. Would love to get your thoughts.
Do I want to waste my time on that? Maybe. I don't know. I'll check it out. I know. Yeah, I'll tell you what's funny is like when I put the player's handbook out in the dating category on Amazon, I actually bumped that bitch off of the #1 spot in 2 weeks. I'm like, gotcha, bitch. That was awesome.
All right. Yeah, I got wrestling in San Jose, 11 a.m. on Saturday. So if you're around, come check it out. The John Fitch Knows Nothing podcast stream is tomorrow night at 7. There were bare knuckle fights yesterday. Watch those. There's some pretty good fights. There's one guy who's 6'7", man. It's crazy watching this guy fight bare knuckle. And then, yeah, what else? So yeah, go, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Sign up for the newsletter, and things will be good. If you guys need some instruction on violence, follow the links to Gumroads. I got stuff there. I do seminars, private lessons, online consulting. Reach out. I'm available. That's it. All right, guys. I think we did our best job we could. There's a lot of ways to fuck your life up, I guess, really. And I think it really is. Like Aaron Clary said that it's like the biggest thing about ending up poor, ending up in poverty, is like there's certain things that if you F your life up, if you marry the wrong person, if you get the wrong person pregnant, problems with drugs and alcohol, if you're getting into fights, you can't control your anger and you're getting into street fights and you end up getting a felony, you're effing your life up. A lot of those things can all happen before the age of 25. So if you're not diligent, like, and that's what gets me crazy is the whole YOLO, you're young, have fun, bull crap. People told me that my whole youth. You're young, have fun, lighten up. Bull crap, right? Your teens and 20s are for hard work and dedication. Like, you need to start moving in the direction you want to go at that time. Like, if you wait on your ass and wait on your heels and sit and wait for things to happen to you, and now you're 25 or 35 years old and you're like, what do I want to do with my life? You missed the boat, man. You effed it up. You effed up your life.
You're definitely starting at a disadvantage.
Yep. Big. All right, guys.
You can fix it.
Thanks everybody for watching. We'll check y'all later.